This video is sponsored by Surfshark.
You know, I've been going to CES for 10 years. And for most of that time, I've been saying, man, I wish CES were worth going to as a mobile tech fan. Well, it turns out the only thing you'd need to do to make CES an awesome show is to stay at home. Yep, in the midst of a meteoric rise in COVID cases and the specter of many large exhibitors dropping out of CES, I canceled my flights and left the swanky suites of the Cosmopolitan Hotel to my more cosmopolitan friends, staying here in the safe embrace of New York City, where the local infection rate is a mere 22%, and my smartwatch keeps letting me know about all the fun things I'm missing. But anyway, we're not here to talk about that. We're here to talk about all the tech that I was sad to miss. So let's get to it.
First up is the Samsung Galaxy S21 Fan Edition, which is a $700 mid-range phone that I personally would leave on the shelf in favor of the $600 Pixel 6 or the even cheaper Galaxy S21 it too closely resembles. I'm not planning on covering this phone. I bring it up only because it's made by Samsung, which also brought a little slice of the folding future to CES. Now, normally the term concept design is code for a product you may never be able to buy. Stay tuned. But this is Samsung we're talking about. Currently the leader in shipping folding phones that are actually for sale and are actually worth buying. Even more significant, these products are being shown off by Samsung Display, the arm of the company that builds flexible OLEDs not just for Samsung foldables, but for other companies like Oppo as well. All that is to say that even if Samsung doesn't make something like the Flex concept here, it might end up making the displays for a company which does. And that's exciting because while I'm very happy with the added acreage my Galaxy Fold 3 gives me, sometimes I want even more space or a different aspect ratio for watching video. This Flex S design provides that by using a hybrid innie and outie fold which leaves one panel exposed so you can use it while closed, or in the case of the Flex G, a double innie fold that hides away the whole display when not in use. I think the Flex S is the better fit for a handheld, like a smartphone, while the Flex G probably makes more sense for a tablet. Now, Samsung also showed off the Flex Slidable, a take on the so-called rollable concept we've seen from other companies. This format always gets a lot of adulation in the comments, but I'm not a big fan because it eliminates one of the key advantages of foldables, which is that they protect the display when closed. I'm just not sure that constantly exposing this much soft screen material to the outside world is a good idea. And finally, there's the Flex Note, a big 17-inch screen that folds away into the size of a 13-inch laptop when closed. Samsung's actually shown this off before, alongside the smaller Flex S, in a concept video from last year, which I'm really hoping is an indication the company might actually build these things.
Now, if you don't want to wait for your life to be over, you want to know right now, what will it be? ASUS is already building a laptop very similar to that would-be Galaxy Book.
Yep, the company behind some of my favorite laptops has decided to bring its Zenbook family into the fold. ASUS wouldn't confirm this, but it seems entirely possible the Zenbook Fold is built around that big Samsung OLED from the last section, because the dimensions are the same. 17 inches when open, 12.5 when you fold it into a laptop, at which point you can either use the on-screen keyboard or spring for the Bluetooth accessory to control it. I explained why this approach makes a lot of sense about a year ago in my review of the Lenovo ThinkPad X1 Fold, but sadly, both hardware and software issues with that device have led to it gathering dust on my desk instead of joining my everyday carry. The Zenbook Fold in many ways resembles a bigger version of that device, running on newer Intel Silicon and presumably Windows 11, both of which should help make it a smoother experience than Lenovo's first attempt. At least I hope. Based on the Zenbook and Zephyrus dual-screen laptops I've reviewed to date, it also seems likely that ASUS will bring some custom software to fully leverage the unconventional screen here. But we'll have to wait until mid-22 when it goes on sale to find out more.
Hey, speaking of unconventional and dual screen and Lenovo, you ever wonder what would happen if you built a tablet directly into a laptop?
No? Well, that's a question Lenovo tries to answer anyway with its third-generation ThinkBook Plus. Take it from me, secondary screens on laptops really do come in handy a lot more often than you might think. But here, rather than stretching a wide screen across the top of the keyboard deck, Lenovo has bumped the keyboard to the left and installed what's effectively an 8-inch tablet. That's good for calling up a quick calculator, it's good for editing photos, it's good for duplicating your smartphone screen when the feature arrives. The possibilities, as Lenovo says in its teaser video, are endless. Well, maybe not quite as endless if you're a lefty, or if you need anything more powerful than integrated graphics, or if you don't want to buy a new backpack to cart around what TechRadar notes is indeed a very large machine. But at a starting price of about $1,400 when it launches in May, it's far cheaper than the dual-screen laptops I've used to date. And no matter how wonky that second screen ends up being, I'm willing to wager it's more useful than what Lenovo tried with prior models, like sticking an e-ink display on the cover.
Yeah, much better use for e-ink in 2022, apparently. Slapping it onto a car.
Yeah, all right, it's another concept with enough technological and regulatory hurdles to virtually ensure it won't make it to market until the 2030s. But this BMW sports activity vehicle is so cool, I just don't care. The carmaker worked with e-ink, the company that makes the electrophoretic material you find in modern e-readers, to transfer that technology from the Kindle to a custom car wrap that covers almost the entire surface of this vehicle. Just like on a Kindle, the display material is made up of countless tiny capsules filled with both negatively charged white pigments and positively charged black ones. All the driver has to do is hit a control in the cockpit to alter that charge, and the car can literally change from black to white or anywhere in between at the flip of a switch. In its press release, e-ink points out some potential practical benefits of this, like temperature control. It's easier to warm up a car in the winter if it's got a black paint job that absorbs the sun's rays, and conversely, it's easier to cool off a white car in the summer. When you're talking about all-electric cars, the less energy you need to put into climate control, the more range you'll get, and e-ink only uses power when it's changing state. But, be that as it may, those gains have got to be minimal. And more to the point, I feel about this the same way I do about clamshell folding phones. Manufacturers shouldn't feel the need to justify themselves to the killjoys who show up in every comment section demanding a use case or, calling something a gimmick. The reality is that cars, like phones, are for many people an extension of their personality. And being able to change your car's color on a whim is just too fun for me not to want to see it come to fruition someday. And that is, once regulators write laws to accommodate it, and car makers figure out how to implement it economically and durably.
But I think that's enough from my broad interpretation of the word mobile. After the break, I'll show you a couple smartwatches and the smartphone that, let's face it, everyone's going to be talking about from this show. Cheap, simple, reliable. Usually you have to pick two, but my sponsor Surfshark has consistently been ranked all three by sites like Tom's Guide.
Surfshark is a virtual private network, or VPN, that gives you private access to the open internet. What does that mean? Well, for one thing, it can prevent your internet service provider from giving special treatment to certain types of content, like throttling your video streaming speeds. Speaking of video, ever try to watch a show but it's not available in your region? Well, Surfshark can help there too. And if your travels take you to a country with internet censorship laws, Surfshark can help keep you connected, whether you're on your smartphone, tablet, or laptop. Get the VPN that eats other deals alive. Hit up Surfshark at the link below and pay as little as $2.49 a month when you sign up for 2 years using the code below. Thanks to Surfshark for sponsoring this video. For years, watchmaker Fossil Group has been one of my favorite stops at CES. Typically, the company drops almost its entire lineup of smartwatches for the year in one rhinestone-studded press event. This year, predictably, things are a little tamer, with just 2 watches hitting the show. the limited edition collaboration with gaming company Razer, limited to just Elite units because gaming, but also limited in a broader way. Folks, this is essentially just a Fossil Gen 6 smartwatch with some Chroma RGB integrations to spruce up its Wear OS software and an Ecto Cooler wristband. Check out Lexi's video over at CNET to see it in action. For that, you'll pay $330, about $35 more than you'll pay for the other new watch at the show, the Skagen Falster Gen 6. While this one is much more in keeping with my personal style and one I'm looking forward to reviewing, it's not likely to get my full recommendation, until the second half of the year anyway. Folks who want the full story should check out my Fossil Gen 6 review for all my extended reasoning there. But as fellow watch nerds will know, it all comes down to waiting for Google to bring Wear OS 3 to watches other than Samsung's.
And finally, it's the smartphone star of the show, even if, like many of us, it wasn't even there.
The OnePlus 10 Pro is just what you'd expect from the brand that has long put specs at the top of its priorities. It's anchored by that new Snapdragon 8 Gen 1 processor we saw at the Qualcomm Snapdragon Summit in Hawaii last month, and it's powered by a very large 5,000 mAh battery paired with 80-watt charging, fast enough to call warp speed, even if that's not what it's called anymore. Yeah, the name has been changed to SuperVOOC as OnePlus continues to grow closer in identity to its sister brand Oppo. But another name is sticking around: Hasselblad. The partnership with the storied camera maker started off with something somewhat less than a bang last year, as you may remember from my OnePlus 9 Pro review. And I think many of us wanted more than a few tweaks to color science and a high-profile brand name on the camera pod. And OnePlus seems to have heard us. There's now 10-bit color capture on all three cameras, 12-bit RAW support, and a new ultra-wide-angle camera. It's not the 107 or 112 or even 120-degree wide-angle that we see on most phones, but a 150-degree wide-angle camera. I've actually been lucky enough to try this hardware already, since OnePlus's sister company Realme has included a similar camera in its new GT2 Pro. And compared to the Pixel 6 Pro, you can see just how much more fits into the shot here. Of course, how successful the 10 Pro will be all comes down to how OnePlus decides to price it. And while it'll launch in China on January 11th, we'll have to wait and see what price tag it carries when it comes to global markets later in the year.
John Deere self-driving tractors, improvements to Android that make it get along better with other devices, and a remote control that draws power from the ether itself. There were a lot more developments that came out of CES 2022, and I will link to my favorite coverage of those stories in the description below. Thanks for joining me for this unexpected edition of MrMobile Stays Home while the greatest consumer electronics show in years goes on thousands of miles away. And if you couldn't tell, my FOMO is conspiring with my cabin fever to produce frustration that only a road trip can relieve.
Stay tuned to the MrMobile on YouTube for whatever that trip ends up being, hopefully shot through the lens of a fun smartphone camera, as well as the 2022 version of the MrMobile Everyday Carry, dropping soon. As always, none of the manufacturers behind the products featured in this video had any editorial input, copy approval, or even an early preview of this video. They're seeing it for the first time right alongside you. Until next time, I've been Michael Fisher. Thanks for watching. And stay mobile, my friends.